As can be. Curious George, a curious little monkey. Why is he curious? Well, let's go and see.
The church bell didn't ring yet, George, said the man with the yellow hat, but it must be time soon. You go ahead, and I'll meet you there. On his way to church, George met Mickey and Sandra, dressed up in their Sunday best. There was a football on the grass across the street. George ran over and threw the ball to Mickey. Nice going, George, said Mickey, and they ran over to play with George. We'd better be careful, Sandra said. It's muddy over here. Just when she said that, George kicked the ball right into a patch of mud. Oh, no, she cried. What will Mother say? Mickey grabbed the ball and kicked it back to George. But George missed it and fell into a puddle. What a mess! Just then, Mrs. Wicker, the Sunday school teacher, came running over. As George was shaking off the mud, it splashed all over her new dress. George, she cried, look what you've done. George was scared. He ran to the side of the church, climbed all the way up the bell tower, jumped inside, and hid behind a bell. Just then, the minister and the janitor came up. Why aren't the bells ringing? Asked the minister. I keep pressing the button, but the power must be off, said the janitor. Can't you ring them by hand? Asked the minister. The ropes are too high for me, said the janitor. Well, you'd better get them ringing soon, said the minister, or no one will come to church. And he left. Oh, dear, said the janitor. How can I make them work? But George knew what to do. He jumped down from his hiding place and landed on a rope. Then he jumped from one rope to another. Up and down. Up and down. The bells are ringing, cried the minister, and ran up the stairs again. A monkey is ringing them, shouted the janitor. Why, it's George, said the minister. Keep ringing, George. Keep ringing. George kept ringing. All the people heard them. Now they knew it was time to go to church. George could see the man with the yellow hat and all the neighbors walking to church. Mickey and Sandra and the other children waved to George. See you in church, they shouted. But as soon as George came down, Mrs. Zwicker, the Sunday school teacher, grabbed him. You are not going to get away again, she shouted. I'll tell the minister about you. Just a moment, Mrs. Zwicker, said the minister. George should not have messed up your dress, but he did make up for it by ringing our church bells. Finally, the service began. We are lucky to have our friend George with us today, began the minister. Without him, there would not have been a service.
Hello, I'm Nick, and that was Steve. Today, Steve is a baker. I wonder if you've seen a baker's hat. They're very tall hats, like this. This one's all floppy at the top. Here it is. And here Steve's holding a wooden spoon. He uses that for mixing up all the ingredients. Steve the baker. One day, the mayor called at Steve's bakery. We've just finished the new town hall, he said. We want you to bake a special cake for our party tonight. When the cake's finished, take it straight round to the town hall. but we must have it by 7 o'clock at the latest. The mayor gave Steve the key to the new town hall, and Steve put that key safely in his top pocket. There it is. A special cake, said Steve. Let me think. I know, I'll make one that looks like the new town hall. He got out his biggest mixing bowl and he mixed up all the ingredients. There were sultanas, eggs, orange peel, and lots of secret ingredients of his own. He mixed all that mixture up there and he poured it all into a great big cake tin. Can you see that coming in there? Yeah, pouring it in there. And then he popped the cake tin into the oven. I haven't got time to lick the bowl today, said Steve. Steve worked all day on the cake. He didn't even stop for dinner. He made windows and chimney pots out of marzipan. He made a door out of chocolate. And a little flag to stick on top. Then, very carefully, he put the words Town Hall over the doorway. Here we are. And the cake was finished. It was magnificent. Steve looked at the clock. It's nearly 7, he said. Ooh, no time to lose. He rushed round to the town hall. He looked in his apron for the key, but it wasn't there. He looked in all his pockets. Look, he's turned out his trouser pocket there. And here's his other one. But look, there's no key anywhere. Just stitching. Oh, what am I going to do, said Steve. It'll soon be time for the party and I've lost the key. Oh, dear. Just then, along came Police Constable Simmons.
Hello, hello, hello,
He said.
What's going on here then?
Steve explained about the missing key. Now, don't you worry, Steve, my lad, said PC Simmons. We have ways and means of dealing with this sort of thing. And out of his pocket, he took a big bunch of special keys. Here's one of those special keys. And he tried each one of the keys in the lock in turn. Here's the keyhole, and he's given it a turn in the keyhole, look. Clunk went the lock suddenly. As I said PC Simmons, opening the door. We have ways and means. PC Simmons helped Steve to carry the cake up to the top table. Just then, the mayor and all the other guests arrived.
Oh, splendid,
Splendid, said the mayor, looking at the cake. You must stay to the party, Steve. And you too, PC Simmons. Steve and PC Simmons sat next to the mayor. They had egg sandwiches, sausages on sticks, jelly, ice cream and crisps. Ice cream and crisps, eh? Whoa. There it is. There's Steve helping himself to another sandwich. Look, chomp, chomp. Steve had second helpings of everything because he'd missed his dinner. The mayor stood up and said something long and important about the new town hall. And now, he said at last, it's time to cut the cake. But as he was cutting the first slice, the knife hit something hard. It was the missing key. Must have fallen into the cake mixture, thought Steve.
Oh, splendid,
Splendid, said the mayor. And he held up that missing key. Here's his coat with a funny sleeve. We just put a bit of colour on there to match it in. Here's his hand holding up that key. Here we are. Great big key to the town hall. It's a big key, isn't it? What a clever idea to put the key to our new town hall inside the cake. All the guests had a big piece of cake and everyone agreed that it was delicious. There's just one thing, said the mayor. If the key was inside the cake, how did you get into the town hall? Steve and PC Simmons looked at each other and smiled. Aha, said Steve. We have ways and means. See you next time. Bye for now.
Good morning, John here again, this time with some rather beautiful shells. Seashells, although they don't come from this part of the world, they come from the tropics, they're beautiful, aren't they? This one's all lovely and shiny on the inside, and originally these were a type of snail that lived in the sea. But they were also used by a completely different type of animal after the original owners who'd grown with the shell had died. Now, let's see if I could find one of those particular sorts of animals. Oh, dear me, look at this. I've got a little cup down here, and it keeps moving. Can you see? Look, it's moving all on its own. I'm not pushing it. So, as you might imagine, I have a special friend in there, and he's pushing that cup about. I put him there to keep him in one place, but it hasn't worked. So let's just take the cup off and see what he is. And there, another little shell, very beautiful one, nice and polished, and as you can see, it's a crab known as a hermit crab. Now you may think I'm being very cruel because he's not in a tank of water. And I am not being cruel at all, because this is one of the many types of land crabs. Yes, they live on the land. They don't go in the sea at all, except the female goes in eventually and lays her eggs. The eggs hatch out in the sea. Come back here, will you? The eggs hatch out in the sea, and as soon as they're fairly big enough to crawl ashore, they come ashore and they stay there for most of their lives. Well, now, what about these shells? Now, that shell he's got, just like the ones I just showed you, is not his in the sense that he didn't grow with it. He took it over when the original animal that lived in there, which was snail-like, died, and he has to take that over, and as he grows, he has to find a bigger shell to get into. So where these animals come from, they have to go down to the seashore now and again, because they go quite a long way inshore, and they even climb up trees and eat fruit, some of them, and they have to come back as they grow and look for another shell. This one's obviously too big for him, you see, but he'd come back when he's much older, and he'd find a bigger one, and he'd get out of the one he's in and quickly push himself into the other, and if it's a nice shape and everything, he's quite happy, and he's in a bigger shell. It's a funny business, isn't it? So go on, have another little walk. Now, if I can pick him up, he's so very lovely and Ajar. Now look, can you have a close look at that front claw if I hold him steady? Because it's such a beautiful colour. Look, he's coming right out to look at me. Can you see that? It's a lovely colour, isn't it? Sort of red. There's one blue one, rather blue, and the other's quite red. Let's see if he'll come right out while I'm holding him. Out he comes. Of course, he can come out completely if he wants to, but he doesn't want to, because this home he's got is quite a good one at the moment. Let him get onto my hand, see if he'll walk off. See, his feeler's thinking. He says, oh, off I go. There it is. Ah, his lovely home. And don't you agree he keeps it polished beautifully, doesn't he? Have you ever seen anybody polishing a car? Well, I think he probably does that on Sundays. Don't go off the edge. Oh, he's going right off onto the carpet. Come back. They're very lively little animals, and I think they're delightful. You get other sorts of land crabs, that is, crabs that don't live in a shell, more like the ordinary crabs that you see on the seashore. You get a lot of those that live on the land as well. They dig big holes in the ground away from the sea. I can't get him back here, can I? Will you come back for a minute? Do you think you'd like that big shell? Have a look at that one. See what he thinks of that. It's too big for him, isn't it? But never mind. Would you like that big one? No, I think he thinks, I don't think so. This particular one lives in the London Zoo, and as he grows bigger, he has to be offered other shells, of course, so that he can fit himself into them as he gets bigger and bigger and needs a bigger shell, because he cannot grow the shell himself. It's an extraordinary system when you come to think of it. One animal that has no relationship to the other. I mean, one is a crab and the other's a snail, and yet they both use the same home that's built very kindly by the snail, apparently, for the hermit crab. There you are. How fast can you go? He goes very fast. Shall we let him walk off now? Shall we? There he's going to go right away. Go on, off you go. And I think he's going to go for his breakfast and I'll go for mine. Hasn't hurt himself. Off he goes. So there. We'll let him go peacefully off now, and I'm off too. Till next week. Goodbye.
I know you care about us cats, so get your hands on this new Glade Litter Fresh. Its special formulation prevents all those litter odours. Each time you renew the litter, just sprinkle it over the top and smells fresh and clean. Now we use Glade Litter Fresh that nice Mrs. Jones pops in all the time. I love it. Remember, Glade Litter Fresh, the perfect answer.
There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many kids she didn't know what to do. So she went to the shop for McVitie's bar cakes. She knew there were a dozen things she could make. There's ginger, golden syrup, orange and lemon. They tasted so delicious the kids thought they were in heaven. The moral, dear friends, is simple to take. You can do a dozen things with a McVitie's bar cake. And that's no fairy tale.
Hello, I'm Atara, and that was the sound of my flute. Prince Ivan went and caught a bird, and then to his surprise he heard it say, "One day I shall come back when nasty aliens attack." Ivan was a prince. He was the only prince in the kingdom of Muscovy. He quite liked being a prince, but he was lonely. He lived in a castle where there were no other boys or girls to play with, so he played with his animal friends. He had a puppy dog friend and 2 kitten friends. One day, he made a little cage. On the top, he wrote, "Ivan Zoo." His mother asked him what the cage was for. Ivan said, "It's for my friend the bird." "Which bird is that?" asked his mother. "The one I'm going to catch in the forest," said Ivan. Like a brave huntsman, off he marched into the forest to catch the bird to live in Ivan's zoo. the puppy dog and the 2 kittens followed behind him. It's not easy to catch a bird. Ivan ran after the sparrows and the robins and the cuckoos, but they all jumped up and ran away before he could catch them. At last, Ivan managed to catch a bird. He'd never seen one like it before. It was orange and yellow and bright green. "Ouch!" said the bird. "Put me down. I'm the firebird. Let me go." And it started to struggle to get free. "Stop it," said Ivan. "I am a prince, and I'm going to take you home to live in my zoo." The bird began to cry. "Oh, please don't do that. You see, I am the firebird. If I don't fly through the forest and drop my green and yellow and orange feathers everywhere, the trees will have no green leaves, and there will be no orange and no yellow flowers." Ivan did not like the idea of a forest with no bright colours in it. "Oh, all right," he said. "I'll let you go." The firebird was so happy, it sat on Ivan's shoulder and sang him a song. "Before I fly away," said the firebird, "I'm going to give you a present. Here it is." "Oh, thank you," said Ivan. "It's a flute. I wanted one for Christmas." "You can learn to play tunes on it," said the firebird, "and if ever you need my help, all you have to do is to play my song, like this." Ivan blinked. The firebird was gone. But where its feathers had fallen, the forest was full of green leaves and yellow and orange flowers. Ivan led the puppy dog and the 2 kittens home for breakfast, singing a song on his new flute. Time went by. Ivan grew up big and strong. One day, he became the king of Muscovy. He was very brave and very clever. All the people were so happy to have Ivan to look after them. But then, Muscovy was invaded by nasty aliens from outer space. Ivan and his soldiers fought them, but it was no good. The aliens had laser guns. They went zap and turned Ivan's soldiers into green ice lollies. The aliens captured the mountains and the forest and even the town of Muscovy. Only Ivan's castle was left. Just as the aliens were attacking for the last time, Ivan remembered the firebird and how it had promised to help him. He took his flute out of his pocket and tried to remember the magic tune, but he'd forgotten how it went. Crash! The castle started to fall down as the aliens attacked. Zap, zap, zap! The laser guns turned the last few soldiers into green ice lollies. At last, Ivan got the tune right. It worked. Out of nowhere, the firebird flew at supersonic speed. Round and round the aliens it flew, so fast they could not hit it with their laser guns. The firebird's feathers shone so brightly, all they could see were flashes of green and orange and yellow. So they started to shoot each other by mistake. One by one, the aliens turned into black ice lollies. Then they melted into little puddles on the ground. And the Firebird sat on Ivan's shoulder and sang his song again. And when they heard the music, all the green ice lollies turned back into Ivan's soldiers. And the town came back to life, and everyone in Muscovy was happy again.
Hello, I'm Dick, and here's Dodo. And this week, just like we've done the last couple of weeks, we've come to see some animals that you wouldn't ordinarily see in English fields. For example, over here, zebras, and over there, llamas. The zebras don't take any notice of the llamas, but one of the llamas, the big bull, he's called Arthur, simply can't take his eyes off the zebras. All day long, Arthur stamps up and down that fence, muttering rude llama words under his breath. Just let me get at you, he says to the zebras. I'll show you who's boss round here. It's a good job he can't, because with their hooves and their sharp teeth, they make an awful mess of him. Let's go and see Arthur's family. No, not these. In case you thought these were llamas with very short legs, these are pygmy goats from Africa. They're full grown, and get any bigger than that. That's Dad with the lovely great big horns there. That's Mum, the brown one. That's Auntie over there. And two babies. Come on, baby, so we can see you. Move a bit. A boy and a girl. They're nice. Here's Arthur's family. These are proper llamas. And that big brown and white one over there is called Daphne. We're not going to go too close to Daphne because when llamas are angry or don't like you, they spit. And Daphne is a champion spitter. Llamas come from South America, where they've been used for thousands of years, and very useful they are too. They can carry heavy loads up in the mountains where the air's thin and where other beasts of burden couldn't work. And as well as that, they provide wool and milk of a sort and meat. And they come in all sorts of colours. Now let's go and see a different kind. These walking hearthrugs are alpacas. They're cousins of the llamas, and they come in different colours too. Reds, blacks, whites, and various browns like this chocolate colour. And as you can see, they've got an awful lot of wool. Shouldn't like to be an alpaca in a heat wave. As well as llamas and alpacas, they also keep guanacos here. These are the original wild llamas, and they're always this lovely chestnut colour. I think they're a little bit shy, perhaps of Dodo and me, so we may not be able to get too near to them. All these three sorts we've seen this morning, the llamas, the alpacas, and the guanacos, all belong to the camel family. They're smaller, of course, and they haven't got humps. But they do tend to be a bit bad-tempered like camels are. And like Daphne, the champion spitter, and angry Arthur. I bet he's still swearing at the zebras. Let's go and see. And there he is, still raging up and down. At least he's getting some exercise. Well, Dodo and I'll see you again next week with all the gang, Victoria and Albert, and Rub and Dub and Tub and Frank the Rabbit, and of course the two of us. Till then, goodbye.
You may not want your children to watch this commercial for Chamboissy real chocolate mousse because it contains scenes of sheer indulgence. Made with real chocolate, whipped into a truly delicious mousse. Far too good for the children. Chamboissy real chocolate mousse. Shh. Just don't tell the children.
Hello, I'm Annie. From time to time, I'll be telling you some stories about my friend Julian, who's 7, and his brother Huey, who's 5. This week's story is called The Pudding Like a Night on the Sea, and this is how he told it to me in his own words. I'm going to make something special for your mother, my father said. My mother was out shopping. My father was in the kitchen, looking at the pots and pans and the jars of this and that. What are you going to make? I said. A pudding, he said. My father is a big man with wild black hair. When he laughs, the sun laughs in the window panes. When he thinks, you can almost see his thoughts sitting on all the tables and chairs. When he's angry, me and my little brother Huey shiver to the bottom of our shoes. What kind of pudding will you make? Huey said. A wonderful pudding, my father said. It will taste like a whole raft of lemons. It will taste like a night on the sea. Then he took down a knife and sliced 5 lemons in half. He squeezed the first one. Juice squirted in my eye. Stand back, he said, and squeezed again. The seeds flew out on the floor. Pick up those seeds, Huey, he said. Huey took the broom and swept them up. My father cracked some eggs and put the yolks in a pan and the whites in a bowl. He rolled up his sleeves and pushed back his hair and beat up the yolks. Sugar, Julian, he said, and I poured in the sugar. He went on beating. Then he put in lemon juice and cream and set the pan on the stove. The pudding bubbled and he stirred it fast. Cream splashed on the stove. Wipe that up, Huey, he said. Huey did. It was hot by the stove. My father loosened his collar and pushed at his sleeves. The stuff in the pan was getting thicker and thicker. He held the beater up high in the air. Just right, he said, and sniffed in the smell of the pudding. He whipped the egg whites and mixed them in the pudding. The pudding looked softer and lighter than air. Done, he said. He washed all the pots, splashing water on the floor, and wiped the counter so fast his hair made circles around his head. Perfect, he said. Now, I'm going to take a nap. If something important happens, bother me. And the pudding is for your mother. Leave the pudding alone. He went on to the living room and was asleep in a minute, sitting straight up in his chair. Huey and I guarded the pudding. Oh, it's a wonderful pudding, Huey said. With waves on the top, like the ocean, I said. I wonder how it tastes, Huey said. Leave the pudding alone, I said. If I just put my finger in there, I'll know how it tastes, Huey said. And he did it. You did it, I said. How does it taste? It tastes like a whole raft of lemons, he said. It tastes like a night on the sea. You've made a hole in the pudding, I said. But since you did it, I'll have a taste. And it tasted like a whole night of lemons. It tasted like a floating sea. It's such a big pudding, Huey said. It can't hurt to have a little more again. Whoops, I said. Oh, you put in your whole hand, Huey said. Look at the pudding you spilled on the floor. I'm going to clean it up, I said. And I took the rag from the sink. That's not really clean, Huey said. It's the best I can do, I said. Look at the pudding, Huey said. It looked like craters on the moon. to smooth this over, I said, so it looks the way it did before. Let's get spoons. And we evened the top of the pudding with spoons. And while we evened it, we ate some more. There isn't much left, I said. We were supposed to leave the pudding alone, Hughie said. We'd better get away from here, I said. We ran into our bedroom and crawled under the bed. After a long time, we heard my father's voice. Come into the kitchen, dear, he said. I have something for you. Why, what is it? My mother said, out in the kitchen. Under the bed, Hughie and I pressed ourselves to the wall. Look, said my father, out in the kitchen, a wonderful pudding. Where is the pudding? My mother said. Where are the boys? My father said. His voice went through every crack and corner of the house. We felt like two leaves in a storm. Where are you? I said. My father's voice was booming. Hughie whispered to me, I'm scared. We heard my father walking slowly through the rooms. Hughie, he called. Julian. We could see his feet. He was coming into our room. He lifted the bedspread. There was his face, and his eyes like black lightning. He grabbed us by the legs and pulled. Stand up, he said. We stood. What do you have to tell me? He said. We went outside, Hughie said. And when we came back, the pudding was gone. Then why were you hiding under the bed? My father said. We didn't say anything. We looked at the floor. I can tell you one thing, he said. There is going to be some beating here now. There is going to be some whipping. The curtains at the window were shaking. Hughie was holding my hand. Go into the kitchen, my father said, right now. We went into the kitchen. Come here, Hughie, my father said. Hughie walked towards him, his hands behind his back. See those eggs, my father said? He cracked them and put the yolks in a pan and set the pan on the counter. He stood a chair by the counter. Stand up here, he said to Hughie. Hughie stood on the chair by the counter. Now, it's time for your beating, my father said. Hughie started to cry. His tears fell in with the egg yolks. Take this, my father said. My father handed him the egg beater. Now beat those eggs, he said. I want this to be a good beating. Oh, Hughie said. He stopped crying and he beat the egg yolks. Now you, Julian, stand here, my father said. I stood on the chair by the table. I hope you're ready for your whipping. I didn't answer. I want these whipped well. Yes, sir, I said, and started whipping. My father watched us. My mother came into the kitchen and watched us. After a while, Hughie said, this is hard work. That's too bad, my father said. Your beating's not done. And he added sugar and cream and lemon juice to Hughie's pan and put the pan on the stove. And Hughie went on beating. My arm hurts from whipping, I said. That's too bad, my father said. Your whipping's not done. So I whipped and whipped, and Hughie beat and beat. Hold that beater in the air, Hughie, my father said. Hughie held it in the air. See, my father said, a good pudding stands on the beater. It's thick enough now. Your beating's done. Then he turned to me. Let's see those egg whites, Julian, he said. They were puffed up and fluffy. Congratulations, Julian, he said. Your whipping's done. He He mixed the egg whites into the pudding himself. Then he passed the pudding to my mother. "Oh, wonderful pudding," she said. "Would you like some, boys?" "No, thank you," we said. She picked up a spoon. "Why, this tastes like a whole raft of lemons," she said. "This tastes like a night on the sea." Well, that's all from Julian today. And that's all from Rubber Dub Tub for this week. Goodbye.
Here we are on a Saturday morning, standing under a shop awning. Then we say words they won't understand. Let's rise, oh mighty, oh, and muscle rise and I's got the eyes cause I'm dry sinking ties as I's got the eyes cause I'm dry sinking ties as I didn't understand that. Did you understand that? I didn't understand that. Curious noise. Curious noise. Hand over that ties are you boys. Now we twising their cheeky wisers as ties-izer hits our rising. Now when we drising ties-izer again, we'll keep this ties-oxide secret so we can call them nising. I's got the eyes cause I'm dry sinking ties as I's got the eyes cause I'm dry sinking ties as I's got the eyes cause I'm...
You may not want your children to watch this commercial for Chamboisi Real Chocolate Mousse because it contains scenes of sheer indulgence. Made with real chocolate, whipped into a truly delicious mousse. Far too good for the children. Chamboisi Real Chocolate Mousse. Shh. Just don't tell the children.
There's a lot of excitement down at the My Little Pony stable because 4 new little ponies have moved into the paddock. Tootsie and Cherry's Jubilee enjoy going for walks, while Lickety-Split and Posy like to trot about all day long. And both Lickety-Split and Cherry's Jubilee have long curly manes and tails, as if they've just got back from the hairdressers.
My Little Pony.
The new My Little Ponies from Hasbro.
Look! Another new boyfriend. She must have a secret. If she tries, it doesn't show. She must have a secret. There must be something we don't know.
And French deep cleansing milk. Look cleaner, look fresher. Look out for the boys.
Percy Perfect, the little saint, eats what he's told without complaint. Billy Normal, like most boys, would sooner eat what he enjoys. "Mamma," cries Percy, "this is bliss." While Billy tucks into a dish of spaghetti in a sauce to savour, Cross and Blackwell love the flavour. It's true, you know, all kids will eat wholesome food if it's a treat. High-fibre whole wheat spaghetti from Cross and Blackwell. Nothing this good for you should taste this good.
Try a taste of summer with a Wall's pork pie. That rich, crispy pastry and the special succulent taste of pork. There's nothing to beat 'em. Go on. You never know who might pop in for lunch. Wall's pork pies. It's the way they make 'em that makes them famous.
The red box from Pi, a 9-inch portable color TV. Small, but perfectly formed, to give you the clearest of pictures, in a color others find hard to match. The Pi red box. Wake up to what Pi is doing.